When I first told people that I was moving to Arizona in the middle of summer, they looked at me like I had completely lost my mind. I might as well have been telling them that I was moving to, an active war zone or even an active volcano or something. They just kind of shook their head like, it's so hot there. Do you know how hot it is? And I'm like, yeah, I've heard it's hot down there. And they just furrowed brow, shaking their head and just like, it's so hot. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I get it. But it's just like one of those things that you don't really get until you're actually in it, like prison. Like I've seen prison movies, I kind of get what it's like, but you don't really get it until you're in it. And so it's the same thing with Arizona. Like once I arrived, I finally realized, okay, they were right. Like as soon as you step outside, it's like the air is mad at you. Like the air has a personal vendetta against you, right? Like, in Mario 3, that level in the desert where the furious, angry sun starts suddenly swirling and darting around, like just trying to kill you the entire time. That's what it's like walking to the mailbox around here. Like the first day that I arrived, I was just sort of desperate to cool down. And so I thought, like, okay, I'm just going to take a cold shower. Like that'll help me out here. So I quickly realized though that like cold showers don't actually exist in Arizona. And the first time I tried it, I thought that the shower was broken. But it turns out that like because of the relentless sun and the nonstop heat, that all of the water and all of the pipes and all of the ground and all of the land is completely hot at all times. It never has a chance to actually cool down. And so that never occurred to me. So even though the shower knob might have a hot or a cold setting, that's false advertising because like what actually ends up coming out of the faucet is either like warm or boiling, and that's it. It's like taking a shower in Satan's bidet. so, so I was desperate to cool down, and so I'm asking locals like, "Well, what do you do in this situation?" And they had a real practical solution. They're like, "Oh, you just fill your bathtub full of ice and take an ice bath. Like I'm preparing a body to harvest some organs for the black market or something." And I was like, okay, well that's not going to work for me. So you just sort of have to deal with it. And everybody around here, they all like to brag about how they can handle the heat, right? Like it's a badge of honor. Like I've survived here for 20 years, and last summer it was 120 degrees all summer. And I'm like, okay, yeah, cool story. Like you want a medal or like some ointment for your melanoma, right? Like everybody's like, well, when it's over 100, it's a dry heat, and I'm like, so what? Like what you're describing here are the same exact conditions as like a cremation chamber. Like what are we talking about here? So with, with this unavoidable sunshine and all of the exposure every time I leave the house, the lack of humidity in the air, my lips have started like transforming into, a fine aged leather. Like my lips have gotten all tight and like smooth, and like I could saddle a horse with these bad boys. So, I started slathering Vaseline on my lips all day to just sort of desperately keep them hydrated. So at all times, I've always got like this thick, glossy spackle on my lips, not caring that I'm going out into public, looking like a drag queen has been making out with a honey baked ham or something, right? So it's pretty intense around here. But, when I first arrived, I kind of expected to see, you know, coyotes chasing roadrunners like a Looney Tunes cartoon, or, rattlesnakes under every rock with, like tarantulas popping out of cactuses or whatever they do. But, sadly, I was a little disappointed. That wasn't the case. But I did want to, look at some scorpions. So my first week, I got the opportunity to go out with the boys to, go out into the wild and check out some scorpions. Now, I don't know if you know this, but if you have a black light and it's dark outside after the sun goes down, scorpions actually glow in the dark. They have like this green glow to them if you put a black light on them. And so, in my head, my only frame of reference is from like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids in the 90s, right? Like I'm expecting these scorpions to be the size of my hand with like this, battle armor and lobster claws and a tail and a stinger that's, thick as a hot dog or whatever. So having to fend this thing off with a torch and fire. So, finally we're scanning the ground and Xander's like, Dad, I found one. So I'm like, step back, boy. I rush over there so it doesn't attack my kid. And I'm squinting on the ground looking for this thing. And I thought he's made a mistake or something. And I bend down and I look at this thing, and it's not the size of my hand, but instead it's like the size of my fingernail, right? Like on my pinky. Like on a shrimp Louis salad, those little shriveled up bay shrimp, right? This is what the scorpion looks like. Just a tiny shriveled up bay shrimp. It was very underwhelming and very disappointing, which is coincidentally what my dad thinks about me. But not the intense battle creatures that I was expecting. So that was a little bit of a disappointment. But when I first arrived, everywhere when I'd go on my walks, before sunrise or after sunset to avoid the sun, I would hear this like humming or buzzing sound everywhere that I went. Like I thought I had tinnitus in my ears or something. I thought it was me. And I couldn't figure out what this humming was, like when you're standing by like a high voltage power line, sort of that ominous like buzzing sound, that's what it sounded like. And I couldn't figure out what the hell it was. So I ended up Googling it and I realized that the sound that I was hearing was the sound of the cicada, right? Which was terrifying when I saw a picture of one. If you don't know what a cicada is, it's an insect that's like, roughly the size of a AA battery. They've got these jet black bodies and like veiny, translucent wings and these, creepy, demonic red eyes. Like they look like they're straight out of a Tim Burton movie or something. Just very creepy, very intense. If I had to pit, a cicada against a scorpion, I'd say the cicada wins hands down, right? So, as if these biblical swarms of potentially high voltage cicadas weren't enough, the storms around here are really intense as well. It turns out that I moved here smack dab in the middle of monsoon season. And so if you don't know what monsoon season is, it's as if like Poseidon and Zeus tag team to, punish everybody for moving to the desert, right? Like one day it'll be completely sunny out, 115 degrees, and then the next minute these dark clouds roll up and just dump, oceans worth of water, and then just the clouds peace out and it's back to sunshine again. But during the storm, the monsoon, you've got like lightning and thunder and flash floods and rain is like pelting the house. In fact, like in the middle of the night one time, it's so loud, this rain, it sounded like somebody was spraying my bedroom window with a fire hose or something, like this intense rain coming down. So during monsoon season, they also have these giant sandstorms that are called haboobs, right? When I first heard the word haboob, I thought they were talking about a, local strip club or something. But it turns out these haboobs are, 5,000-foot walls of just sand and dust and misery that come, blowing into town just to kind of remind everybody who's in charge. So we don't have storms like that in the Seattle area, that's for sure. There's always just kind of a light drizzle around there. So, it's kind of fun experience a new type of storm. But, speaking of sand, I was sort of surprised when I moved here to see that, every single house, every single building, every single grocery store, every single school, they're all the exact same color as dust, right? Like every house and every neighborhood are just varying degrees of the same identical shades of brown and tan and khaki and camel. It's like Stepford Wives Taliban edition or something, right? Like every house is just like in full camo mode. It's like, who are we hiding from here? I feel like I'm in like Operation Desert Storm or something, every neighborhood that I go through. So that's cool. And, the landscaping in front of these houses is very different, right? Everybody's front yards just look like a terrarium for a pet turtle or something. Like there's just a little cactus over here in the corner and the whole yard is just littered with pebbles and rocks and gravel because it's too hard to grow any grass here with, water consumption and it being a desert and all. So everybody just has like a little patch of astroturf in their front yard, right? Like everybody's front yard ends up looking like the 40-yard line of a high school football field or something. So that was a little bit different. But, despite the heat and the wildlife and the lack of color, I have to say that the sunsets and the sunrises around here are actually pretty beautiful, right? They're so beautiful down here because of this perfect blend of like low humidity and air pollution and, like everybody's dead skin cells just like swirling around in the air. But it's pretty magnificent. Hello, my fellow misfits. Good to see you again. Today, I want to talk about living in the liminal. Now, I had never heard the word liminal before, but as these things go, it's been popping up on my Instagram feed and my YouTube videos, and I'm like, what is that all about? So, watched a couple videos and learned about liminal, living in the liminal. And a liminal is sort of let's play a drinking game. How many times can I say liminal in this episode? Liminal is sort of the in-between period, right? I kind of think of it as like a purgatory where I'm sort of in this transformational period of my life, right? Like the rising of the phoenix, right? And transformation and new chapters. But I, in many ways, feel like I'm not there yet. I'm kind of in this weird liminal in-between space, right? Take a shot. Uh, this weird in-between space, right? Where some of the old me is still kind of lingering, right? Old thought patterns, old habits, old beliefs, old loops and patterns in my life. But I'm also like, I'm so close to the new me, to this new chapter, to this version of myself that I want to be, right? That is just on the horizon. So I'm in this weird in-between place, right? And it feels real uncomfortable. Oftentimes I don't like this space, right? And so that's why we're talking about it, because I want to talk about how I'm sort of getting through that space mentally and spiritually, and sort of the lessons that I'm learning through that, and how it's ultimately for my highest and greatest good, right? So oftentimes I'll beat myself up over being in this liminal space, right? Where I want to be this new version of myself, but I'm not there yet. And so what I'll tend to do is listen to that voice in my head, the adversary, telling me that I suck, right? That I'm not good enough, that I won't ever be there, that I don't have what it takes to become that version of myself that I want to be. And so oftentimes I try to stay in my comfort zone, right? The old way, the old comforts that used to, comfort me, right? And so it's real easy to lean on to those. But part of being in this liminal phase is learning to let go of those, to let those old ways and old thoughts and old beliefs and patterns and habits start to dissolve, right? But the thing is about me is I want to rip the Band-Aid off, right? That's my personality. I want to be changed immediately. I want to snap my fingers and be that new person, not recognizing that it's a slow process, right? It's baby steps, and I don't like that because I want to be changed now, right? But I'm learning to give myself grace, right? To be kind to myself, to remind myself that this is a process. I'm heading in the right direction. It's not going to happen overnight, despite what, this guy wants. And then not beat myself up for it, right? The image that came into my head was, the astronauts when they're training, how they're in that like gyroscope machine. They're in a seat that's in that wild gyroscope thing that's spinning them around crazily. And they have to slowly make adjustments here, adjustments there, a little bit here, to slowly get that bad boy under control, to stop the wild spinning, right? And so oftentimes when I feel my life spinning out of control, when I see all these things in my life collapsing or dissolving, I tend to freak out a little bit, right? Because like, what is happening here? But I'm picturing myself as the astronaut, like just a little change here, one day at a time, a little adjustment there, right? And eventually, I'm going to get this thing under control, right? A little more balance, right? Not to say I'm going to stop spinning completely, right? But I'm going to feel a little more balanced, one day at a time, one step at a time. And so that helps me to remember to put it all into perspective because I want it to happen yesterday, right? I was given the image from spirit or whoever's in charge around here, the image of the tree, right? Where when the seasons are changing and the tree loses its leaves in the fall to prepare for winter, it'd be real easy for the tree to freak out and panic, like me, right? When my leaves start falling and everything starts falling away around me, it's real easy to panic and freak out. But I was reminded that this is all just a part of the process, a part of the natural process of how life goes, right? Where you're going to lose your leaves, but there's going to be an equal opposite reaction to that where your leaves are going to come back eventually, right? Now, during that time, it doesn't mean it's not going to be stressful or worrisome. It doesn't have to be. If you listen to the voice in your head, it will be. But it's about having trust and faith in the divine process. That even when you're in these periods of darkness that feels scary or lonely or uncertain, when you don't know what's around the corner, is to trust that process, to trust that the season is going to change eventually, right? Not when you want, perhaps, often, but that it will change eventually. The sun will come back, right? The leaves will grow again. It's the same with the forest fire, to keep with the natural analogies here, nature, that forest fires often seem devastating, right? And scary and like, everything's burning down around me, but it's all part of the process. It's a pruning process, right? A thinning of the things that no longer serve you. All of the weeds and brush that have been choking you this whole time. The divine holy fires come through our lives oftentimes and burn that nonsense all away from the forest floor. But its higher purpose is for growth in our lives, growth in the forest, right? There's no forest around here, I'll tell you that. The cactus doesn't care about any forest fire, I'll tell you that right now. But what this is about for me is about embracing the chaos, embracing becoming comfortable in the discomfort, right? And that's a hard lesson to learn. It's something I've been learning over the last several years of just getting used to it, right? And I'm ultimately thankful for when the universe, when the divine gives me these difficult and challenging situations. I often have to remember, right, when I'm freaking out, to stop freaking out. And instead to turn that into gratitude, to get down on my knees and just say, okay, thank you. Thank you for this divine holy fire. I kind of want to freak out right now, but you're giving me yet another opportunity to become comfortable in this uncomfortability, right? And a large part of that is letting go of control, because oftentimes what I want to do is try to control the situation. I scramble, I panic, I run around like a chicken with my head cut off, right? Like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Start relying on the old ways, the old pattern, the old ways of thinking, which often involves fear, right? Fearful patterns of thinking, rather than having faith and trust in a divine process, faith and trust that something higher than myself is looking out for me, right? So I try to rely on my own actions, right? My own thoughts, my own behaviors to try to get myself out of this. Gotta figure this out, right? Without relying on the divine hand to say, hey, I'll walk through this with you, right? I know you're scared. I know you're panicking, but it's all going to work out, right? And for me, I have a hard time letting go of control, right? I always want to try to control the situation. But what I'm learning through these difficult and challenging things that come into our lives, what I'm learning is to surrender. And that's real hard. Right? Real hard to surrender to something higher than myself, to say, you know what, I'm in over my head here. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know how I'm going to get myself out of this pickle. I don't know how I'm going to pay the bills. I don't know how I'm going to get over that. I don't know how this is all going to come together. But it's about surrendering and giving control to a higher power, right? It's hard when you're going through these things. I'm just speaking for myself, I suppose, but oftentimes I feel lost and confused and bewildered and, like I don't know what I'm doing. And I beat myself up for that. Like I'm doing the wrong thing, right? But God reminded me, like, imagine if the tree had the same attitude that I do. What if the tree lost all of its leaves and was like, I'm a big dummy. I lost all my leaves, right? I did something to screw this whole thing up, right? It's absurd. Right? If the divine cares for the trees and gets the trees through the dark seasons, then how much more will the divine get us through these seasons, right? So what I'm doing is I'm using this as an opportunity to practice letting go, facing my fears, but letting go of these fears, right? Letting go of the stress and the anxiety and the panic, because they don't serve me anymore, right? That in many ways feels like the old way. That's why I'm in this liminal period, this in-between purgatory period of like, my first instinct is to freak out, right? And be stressed out every single day, all day long, but that doesn't serve me anymore, right? And so it's about learning and practicing what I've learned over these last 5 years, which is letting that go. And I've gotten a lot better at it. I haven't perfected that that formula quite yet, but that's what this is, just more practice for me, right? All these things in my life that seem to be falling down and collapsing are just another opportunity to just smile, right? And to just say, I see what's going on here. I see the wink and the nod from God saying, are you gonna freak out like you used to, or are you gonna practice what you learned, right? I've come so far these last few years in terms of facing my fears. And so I'm learning to just let the fear detach from me, right? To recognize that I truly am exactly where I'm meant to be at any given moment in any given day. Now, my family might tell me something different, right? That I'm screwing it all up, that I need to be somewhere different than I am. I need to be doing something different or acting differently, or the voice in my head will reflect that as well. It's just a reflection of my own fears, right? Because my own fears are telling me these things. My own fears are telling me that I'm not good enough, that I'm never going to get to this better version of myself that I'm working towards, that I'm never going to get out of this hole that I'm in, that I'm never going to resolve these problems that are happening in my life, right? That it's not going to work out. And so a part of this is just practice and saying, nope, I can see through the facade. I know this game. I've gone through this 1,000 times before, and I know that it's going to work out. Right? I've crunched the numbers, I've done the math, I've been through this many times before, and I know it's going to work out. So if I know that as a solid base, a solid foundation, that it is going to work out one way or the other, and all of the things that are keeping me up at night are just my fears, that are just thoughts in my own mind. If I know that God is going to take care of me and get me through this, if I know that I'm exactly where I'm meant to be, then why am I panicking and freaking out? Why aren't I waking up each day smiling and happy, knowing that I'm exactly where I'm meant to be? Right? Because oftentimes these divine delays that happen in our life, we want these things, whether it's a new relationship or a new job or new housing or a different amount of money in your bank account, right? There's often a divine timing to this thing, and it's about submitting to that divine timing, right? Because my timing wants it yesterday, and that just doesn't work out ever, right? God just kind of smiles and says, well, that's cute, but I've got a different timetable. I'm not on your calendar, right? I don't have your little watch on my wrist, right? I got divine timing over here, and you can't comprehend it, so just settle down and stop stressing out, right? And so it's about accepting that. And I have to remind myself, and I've been told from the divine that these divine delays are not punishment, right? Because the voice in my head, the adversary, is telling me that I've screwed up, right? That I'm doing it all wrong. And God has reminded me that this isn't some sort of a divine punishment, that these doors are not opening because I'm not doing it right, or that I'm not trying hard enough or doing the right things. God has reminded me that that's the old way of thinking. And so what I'm trying to do is reprogram that, to rewire those thoughts in order to be the new version of myself that I'm heading towards, right? And part of that process is a rewiring process. It's a purification process. I'm purifying and purging these old thought patterns, these old limiting beliefs. A lot of religion is tied to that, old patterns and beliefs and religious thoughts that, like, you're doing it wrong and God is going to punish you because that's what the Bible says. That's how I was raised. That's the theology of my childhood. And I'm trying to reprogram that because I don't believe that to be the case. God has told me, Spirit has told me, that that's not what it's about, right? There's a higher purpose to this whole thing, and to just surrender to it, right? That you're not screwing anything up, buddy. You're doing a great job. Don't beat yourself up. And to remind myself that there's oftentimes, when I look at the patterns, there's oftentimes this chaos before the clarity comes through, right? And so I'm sort of in this period of chaos, but I can feel the chaos clearing a bit, right? Where the clarity is starting to come through, where I'm able to, like, take a deep breath, right? To remind myself it's all going to work out. And I'm also practicing patience during this process, right? Patience is not easy, for me at least, right? How about you? I'm not very patient oftentimes, but I'm getting better at it. I'm growing, right? I'm transforming into somebody, because the guy that I'm trying to turn into, metamorphosize into, that guy's real patient, right? That guy has all the time in the world, knowing that divine timing is at hand. I'll wait as long as it takes, right? I'm not listening to the timetable that's up here or on my calendar, right? Well, it's the end of another month. What are we going to do, right? God doesn't have the same calendar I do. And so I'm learning to have more and more patience through these processes, learning to relax more, right? That's not easy, but I'm getting there. And so as these old ways start to dissolve, I start to see little glimpses of who I want to be, who I'm becoming, right? And the thing that a real epiphany for myself that I had recently was, I'm not just going to become this, omega version of myself, this perfected version of myself, and then, like, okay, Whew, did a good job there. Now it's easy street. Rest of my life. I was reminded that's not how it works. All right. So I have this idea in my puny little human mind that I'm striving for this perfection that's never going to be there. So perhaps I'm always going to be in this liminal stage. And I was like, no, 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 no. I don't want that. That sounds awful. Hold on. I got questions. I don't want to be in this liminal purgatory state for the rest of my life, right? Where I'm like always shedding the old and always striving for the new. That sounds awful and frustrating. And I don't want to be there. I want to be over here where I'm cool. Right. And perfect. And nothing bothers me anymore. And I'm not scared of anything anymore. I want to be that guy. And I can get shades of that, but I was reminded that that state of perfection is not going to happen. Sorry to tell you, but it's not going to happen. And so what I'm trying to do is get myself to a place of acceptance where I can accept that, you know what? I am who I am today. And that's okay, right? That's okay. Because that's where I'm meant to be today. I'm not meant to be that version of myself that I want to be. If I was meant to be that version of myself, I would be that version of myself, but I'm not. So that's where I am today. And that's okay. And I didn't like to hear that. I didn't like to hear that at first because I don't want to be this guy. Because the voice in my head is telling me that this version of myself today is shitty. Right? What a shitty version of myself. Scared of these stupid things, worrying all the time. Right? This guy's kind of a loser. I don't want to be this guy. I want to be the cool guy. God told me to start loving myself in the same way that he loves me. Just how I am. Right? And that was really powerful and really changed my perspective on everything. How I treat myself, how I respond to everything, right? And to not take it so seriously, knowing that it always works out, not to beat myself up so much, knowing that I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. Then everything's going to work out just peachy keen. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not in the way that I want. But I know that in retrospect, I always have a habit of looking back on these things going, oh, okay, I see why it had to happen that way. Okay, I get it now. I get why that had to fall apart. I get why my car had to break down. I get why I had the issues with my job. I get why these people left my life. I get why these doors closed. I get why these doors did not open. It all makes sense now in retrospect, right? But oftentimes when I'm in it, it's like, why won't this door open? I want this door open because I'm freaking out here, right? Just banging on the door, right? Trying to shove my keys into the door and it just won't open, right? Kicking it, screaming, pounding on it, it won't budge. And I'm like, what am I doing wrong? What's the password? And God says, you're not ready for that yet. And when you are ready for it, the door is just going to, with ease, click open and you'll be able to walk right through, right? But the more that I try to force it, the more that I get a crowbar and try to force that door open, it ain't going to work. It's just going to make me exhausted and frustrated, right? So God said that these times in the liminal, these in between frustrating times where there's not a lot going on, I want to see some action here. I was reminded that these times are a blessing, right? These quiet times that seem frustrating. And it's a bit of a testing period, not a test that I can fail, right? But a test that's for my highest and greatest good. It's seeing if I'm ready for that next chapter, right? And it's not like a holy God saying, oh, you're not good enough, right? You're not worthy enough for the next chapter, because that's what the voice in my head is telling me. The voice in my head is telling me that door is not opening because I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy of what's behind the door, which simply isn't the case. So what I was reminded is that's not the case. What's happening right now is I'm being tested to see if I'm ready and prepared to hold the treasures that are on the other side of that door, right? Now, if my hands are full of limiting beliefs, of old patterns, of addictions, of these things from the old life, then I won't be prepared to hold the treasures that are on the other side of that door that I want so badly, right? And so I'm in this process of letting those things go, dropping them to the ground, which is not easy. right? But this testing process, this quiet time, this liminal period is giving me an opportunity to let those things go, to empty myself, to become a free vessel for the divine to flow through me in a way that it's meant to flow through, right? And it can't flow through me freely when I have all of these blockages that are mostly created up here, right? And so when I'm ready, I'm ready. It's not a matter of worthiness. It's for my own good, right? It's like, what's a good analogy here? It's like trying to, you know, rather than teaching my kid how to ride a bicycle, I try to start him out on a motorcycle. That's just not going to work, right? And it's not that the kid isn't good enough or worthy enough for the motorcycle, or the kid, um, it's just simply that he's not ready for it yet, right? It's something that's a little too big for him. He's not ready. Maybe when he's older, right, and more prepared for that and has had more practice, then that will be a seamless transition from bicycle to Harley Davidson, right? And so oftentimes I want to jump too far ahead. I want to be that guy, that version of myself. And oftentimes God says, you're not there yet. It doesn't mean you're a loser, right? It doesn't mean you're not good enough or worthy. You're just not there yet. Like I have all these movies that I want to, and TV shows that I am desperate to watch with my kids from my childhood or whatever, or movies that I really enjoyed, but oftentimes they're not ready yet, right? These real artsy movies, or maybe something that's a little too violent for them right now, or has concepts that they just aren't ready for because they're too young. And I have to tell them, like, oh, sorry, bud, you're not ready for that yet. And oftentimes they'll get offended. Like, what do you mean I'm not ready? I'm a big boy. I can handle these topics. I'm like, no, you're not actually, right? And I know that because I can see it from my perspective, but from my kid's perspective, I get why that's offensive. I get where they're like, what do you mean? You're calling me a baby? And I'm like, no, 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 no. You wouldn't appreciate the movie, right? Like 2001: A Space Odyssey. I want to show that to Xander, but he's just not there yet, right? He's 11 years old. He wouldn't understand the intricacies of it, the Stanley Kubrick's genius behind it, the cinematography, the music, the underlying themes. He's not there yet, right? So that door is closed for him. He could watch it now, but it would just go over his head and not be of any value whatsoever to him. Same thing for me, all these things that I want in my life. God's like, you're just, sorry, bud, but you're just not there yet, right? When you are, that door will open, it'll be seamless, it'll be perfect, and you will appreciate what's on the other side of that door. And so every step that I'm taking along this journey, whether I'm in the liminal or not, is all a part of getting me where I need to be, right? And a part of that even too is not how I want to be thinking, because really there's not a place I need to be. I'm exactly where I need to be right now. And that's the perfect spot for me, right? It's hard. It's hard, and I get it. So perhaps you're going through something like that in your own life, and this resonates with you, and like, cheers. Cheers, right? So sometimes it helps to hear these things out loud, to hear that somebody else is going through a similar situation to what you're going through, right? That there's sort of a camaraderie in that, and to hear that it's all going to be okay, right? To hear that you're not effing it all up, right? Because what's meant for you is going to come to you. That door is going to open when it's meant for you, right? And if it doesn't open, that's okay, right? You haven't screwed up anything. What's meant for you will come to you. And I just continue to have faith and believe that that will happen in my own life and in your life as well, right? There's a divine hand leading and guiding all of us, including you. And it's all going to work out perfectly. Love you. Bye.